System God Gost. Chapter 2, Start Evolution. A dark, blurred ray of lightning that lasted about 30 seconds, the long dry specimen from the corpse of a corpse, pulled out a long-stemmed hammer over a meter in his hand. After the corpse was pulled out, the skin was covered with dirt on the ground, swirling like a pile of muddy, smelly black blood. Trong looked dry long, pointed at the next wooden table, ordered. "Cut this table." The long-haired variety of white goat bumps up on the computer desk. A screeching sound, a wooden computer table shattered by a hammer. What a waste. Looking at the computer desk was cut 2 bars, in the heart of fun music. Having been invincible creatures such as the long-dried specimen of protection, his chances of survival are somewhat increased. Experimenting the destructive forces of the long dry specialty, Yue to hold a black coin carefully observed. A bad point of survival. Yingzhu holds a coin in his hand and receives such news. Although the effect of survival is unknown, Jiang still carefully put in the bag. Right now outside the door to the sound of the collision, each claw piercing through the wood door slightly flickering non-stop. In just a few breaths, the wooden door suddenly shattered, 4 white ghostly eyebrows were clawing at the door to get into his room. Again a clattering sound, a glass window was also a crushed zombie, the other ghosts are cramped into the inside. You looked at the wooden door was broken zombie, laughing along, long dry special direction ordered. Any money-saving school should not save money for dormitory doors. This is really a bean residue. White flag, catch the zombie. A long dry specimen received the command of the Yue, a forward step, aggressive hammer. A hammer on the head of a zombie, immediately hit his head, black blood splashed everywhere. At the same time the 3 zombie heads together to hug white cot, on top of him he just pulled a tear. The bones of the white-haired man were shattered by the 3 most deadly creatures, whose life force was constantly decreasing. The bones of the white-cheeked bones were also stiff, unable to budge. A long dry trek with 3 corpses crowded narrow doors into a band. The musketeers approached quickly, using the force of a cane at the head of a zombie, bringing the zombie's head holding the right arm of the white horse to the side, twisting and twisting. An optical ray of light from the body of the other zombies enter into the body of music. White arm's right arm is liberated, suddenly mobilized a large hammer with a hammer to the head of a zombie lying on his stomach. Like smelling the taste of the living, the remaining zombies are based on the white light suddenly let go, the direction of Yue Tang passing. Trong looked at the white eyes, on the face was bitten off a piece of meat. Outside the mouth of the fresh blood of the remaining zombies, back out 1 step. These zombies are extremely dangerous, if melee with it just be cut through a mouth wound will immediately turn into their kind, if not necessary. Melee monsters. At this time the ghost broke the window has entered the room, wobbling direction to come. In addition to the big door, 2 other zombies followed the broken hole. Just as Sensual was in jeopardy, White Cloud, who had been zombified on the ground, suddenly reached out and grabbed the zombie coming. The musketeer who was walking towards the musketeer immediately fell to the ground, and the musketeer raised his ramp straight to the head of the zombie, bringing his head to the side. A group of optical transparency brought in the body of Music Majesty. He was promoted to secondary level, achieved 2 strengths, he added his point. The light-emitting diary slides into Yue's body, an instant expression that appears in his mind. Strength training, physical strength, Yue immediately said. Together with the phalanx of physical strength to overcome the imagination of music, solve only the 3 ghosts that his physical strength from 8 points to only 3 points. If you want to break the head of zombies he must use all force to do it. In just a moment, a stream of warm water circulating in his body. He vaguely felt his own force with a bolt of strength. The corporeal force had recovered. Congratulations, you are still alive. Moreover, destroy the monster. System Spirit offers him a pillar skill. You choose. The first skill, feeling the label, can explore the material nature of the monster, is not higher than you in 5 levels. The second skill, a specialized language, which makes it easy for you to grasp the foreign language of any country, hears, speaks, and writes without the slightest hindrance. This skill does not count as one of the 3 active speaking skills. You has no hesitation, immediately made the choice. We choose the feeling of the label. A ray of lightning, in his sea, quickly formed a brass-colored eye candy. His mind moves, launching the skill of feeling the label. Direction zombie look back. Primary nephrites, these monsters are eaten by the virus, leaving only the desire for blood. Acquired viral infection, the organism only needs to be damaged by flesh. After a viral eradication, based on physical activity for only 3 minutes to 10 minutes, will be absorbed into the epidural stage. Infected. With the exception of the 3-level epidemic, with the healing power of the world, within 10 years nothing can be saved. Indeed. The gaze of the musketeers condensed, for the zombie to add some taboos. The remaining 2 ghosts stumbled back to the song. Whip the hammer up and down, a zombie is immediately killed. Another zombie dangled on the white head, rambling to the ground, peeling down a bone on its chest. You in the opportunity to step up, aggressive, a stick to the head of zombies, bring his head bite burst. What is this? After leveling up the feeling of the label, Jiang could see a lightless optical band from the zombie body flying into his body. Is this material that makes our body level up strong? You looked at the optical group, eyebrow raised speculation. Without any material, Jinyang casts doubt or throws away, looking through white paper that he has summoned. Long-term dry type, white flag. Forces, 11, 10. Agree, 11, 10. Active body, 11, 10. Fitness, 9, 11, 10. Spirit, 11, 10. Intensity, 6, 10. Get skill, the first advantage of using techniques. Chapter 3, Ghosts are raging. What a waste. You saw White's attributes, in the heart of the fun. White flag is faster than the self itself. Once promoted higher level added 6 attributes, the same element has inherent transcendence of ordinary people 10%. Having such a powerful helper, his probability of survival in this world will be greater than a few. Without any hesitation, the music of Tang Trong compressed the smell from the body of the funeral emitted, pushed the computer desk, blanket, pillow in the room prevented at the door with the window. Temples, though, cannot prevent the funeral of an attacker, but can be effective in preventing the enemy from slowing down. At the highest level of fun, except for a monster body, they have a very obvious weakness: is the slow action. If you do not encounter many funeral attacks, just in the hand have long arms, people can often deal with them. If there are more than 10 public siege, so definitely have to die. Preventing windows and doors, the new Song Trong breathed out. Over the course of the battle, he is unbearable. If he does not have to call White Cloud for help, only fear he has turned into a funeral. A funeral into the situation as narrow as this room, also coping difficult, 3 funeral to go up, he basically cannot fight back. Exhaling a long breath to regain strength, music immediately seek to find resources can exploit inside the room. He quickly found a bunch of climbing ropes, a climbing backpack, 4 packs of instant noodles, half a bag of egg yolk. The small dormitory room, taking advantage of the situation with bok trong bok tai and jointly deal with funeral examination is no better. But there is a key problem. The male dormitory building has 8 floors, each with 20 rooms, each with 12 people, totaling 1,920 boys. Although because of the weekend many boys were born, but stayed at 500 and 600. If these people have 1/3 turned into funeral, so also the terrorist. Most important is a story. Dormitory does not have much surplus food with water reserve. He does not know whether the drinking water system is currently infected or not, except for white water he does not dare drink anything else. You quickly used the rope tied up on the pillars, then threw out the window. Watching the favorable rope fall down, Musketeer dragged the bench to sit at the window with a telescope looking outside, observing the situation. White Cloud remained with him in charge of the realm. At this time the whole school seemed to be boiling. A group of students from the dormitories jumped out, behind them the funeral gags followed. A few students wrapped their arms around their bodies, their faces hurt, obviously injured. A schoolboy was walking on ice without notice at his feet. As he passed a corpse, suddenly the other body reached for his calf, and the other boy stumbled across the ground. "Zhongming, save me." The look of the other boy's frightened look. Good friends running in front of loudly shouted. Zhongming turned his head to look at the other boys along the funeral pursuit in the back, in the eyes filled with fear. The man turned to run away. "Do not look back. Zhongming. Feng Feng. Help. Help me," the other son screamed loudly. Chu Feng, body height of 1m80, heard the rescue of the other boy. Hesitant, he turned his head back to glimpse, only see the boys were 8 children were dug into the ground, biting madly tear, only the vocal scream of the other people scream. Chu Feng see such a screen, threatened to soft feet, then did not turn his head outside the runaway. 8 tentacles bite on the other boy. Very quickly the sound of screaming carpet has disappeared. The remaining boys frantically point outside, running away. The school has now become a delegation where all can see students panic fled with funeral gaggle chase. There are not many people on the street, but suddenly there are many students with funeral, sometimes body students shivering on the ground, when standing up has turned into a funeral. The school grounds are filled with turmoil. Yue Tang saw all the arising in the bottom, in the heart of not shivering, this time on the road run by students who are attracted to many funeral go to large roads, spread throughout the place. On the way to the supermarket of the school garden also has 20 funerals standing there, completely blocking the road to the supermarket suburbs along the road outside the school. 6 boys from the dormitory, while watching the funeral, stopped at the school gate stopping. Just like feeling the air of the living, the 6 mourners suddenly turned the direction of the boys to go. The road through the school door is not very large, 6 funeral completely occupy the width of the road, only save the gap is small. 8 new funeral finished eating at the same time, also wiggle wobble direction, 6 people passing. At this time, all the funeral was closed with no way back. During this critical period, 2 boys face a panic scream loudly to the direction of the funeral in front of it. A man holding a chopsticks in his hand stabbed a funeral examination, the funeral of the other fell on the ground. The other person took a chance to slip through the gap. The other student was covered for a moment, one late, with a clawed hand reaching for his arm, tightly clenched his hand. "Are not. Help. Help." The other students panic scared, mobilizing the carpenters in the hands of the down, bring the arm of the other cracked out. The funeral left over this opportunity to embrace him, open the bloody aggressive bite the other student neck. Help. The other student emits a shrill scream. The three mourners were tightly surrounded by the other students, beginning to tear blood. The other two gongs also smelled of fresh blood to attract, lunging over the student to tear his body. The name of the student who ran away from the sixth funeral was not far away. Suddenly the gong on the road surrounded, covered in the funeral mourning, emit a terrible wailing. The remaining four students saw another screen, in both eyes are filled with panic. Done. A scared man on the ground. Up the tree. A tall, handsome male student was quite calm. He looked around a circle, his hands and feet swiftly climbing a big tree beside him. In the area of the teacher of the University of Van Hoa planted a lot of trees create green scenery everywhere. The other two boys' hands and feet also nimble up the direction of the other great cow crawl. Help me. Kang Wu. Help me Afen. The boy was lying on the ground by his instinct to stand up, saw the other three people climbing trees loudly shouting, he does not know climbing trees. The dazzling screams of male students are fascinating, fun in the range of hundreds of yards to see through, starting this mobile side. More than 10 funeral figures formed enough to make any resistance in the university tear apart. Chapter 4, Fight in the Dorm. The first one climbed up the great Tran Quang, heard the call for help of the boys under, hesitant. Within a short second of Tran Quang's brief hesitation, a gnawing of claws caught the boy's body beneath him, aggressively biting his neck. The other son emitted a tragic cry, suddenly caught in the funeral under the ground to tears. The mournful ringing in the area, panic. Seeing such a screen, three people did not dare to stop the legs and feet crawling on the grate, fearful eyes staring at three funeral under. More than 10 funeral rounds surrounded the grate, forming a mass organization to frighten others, blocking the way to pass outside. Annoying. Trong looked at the situation outside, frowning. The way out the door was blocked. If you want to run away from this place looked extremely difficult. The funeral is only the beginning of the damage, more great power extremely, just scratching the wound on human beings can take their lives, extremely difficult to deal with. If they do not act slowly, humanity does not have a hot weapon, even if it is a rare and dangerous army. Right now outside the door to the stationary static, 2 funeral from the crowded entrance. White lightning guard right in front of the room, rammed to a hammer, bring the head of a funeral cutting down. Yingzhe stared at White Cloud, seeing only a lightning bolt from the corpse of the funeral flew into the skeleton of White Flag. One of the funeral was killed, the remaining one was leaping into the room, then a hammer of white cucumber chopped his head, black blood splashed full of land, dry long. Yosuk raised his eyebrows thinking. Triggers of monsters that seem to be only able to make the creatures themselves are promoted by strength that cannot help the owner to strengthen. Looks like if you want to level up become strong, also have to automatically self-kill the monster. This finding made calculations of music failed. He wanted to take advantage of the white crystal is not afraid of poisoning that help him cope with the funeral, can help him stay safe but still strengthened, but now obviously there is no possibility. If it was not for his own self-help, he would never achieve a strong chance. The future world will be transformed into how the real music is not known, but he declares that the future world would become a devastating anomaly, if he did not change to become great, just afraid to survive. It is also difficult. Like the sound of this place is attractive, the 3 groggy staggered from one side of the wooden door destroyed in the back. White Cloud, you solve 2 names on the left, you instructed. Get the White House orders 1 step forward, mobilizing the white rampant aggressive hammer ahead hammer of a fallen test, black blood splashed everywhere. The remaining 2 mournful contestants are still not in the kitchen. At the door of the room heaped a lot of junk, a groggy stumbling is handicapped by falling objects on the ground. Whenever the white light raises on its head, the killer immediately kills it. Left a funeral face bitten completely changed, on the face full of holes pierced 2 white eyes lure cow crawling out of the hole, the direction of music through. Yam Trong overcome the fear in the heart, steps to a rampant aggressive carpentry hammering on the head of the other, with his head tilted to the side, a group of optical transparency from the body flew into his body. You did not dare to take a little contempt, immediately let the white paper bring the head crash was cut off. It was not until he breathed a sigh of relief, the outside of the funeral coming, from the window at the door of the room to go inside. So many funeral. Jujub witnessed mad crazed entrance into the room, not to take a deep breath of cold, this time at least 10 funeral meeting outside his door, 2 white eyes completely lost the birth of the spirit big pressure encyclopedia. Extraterrestriality is the greatest physical strength, and the same funeral fight with only minor injuries can be fatal to life. More than 10 funeral candidates feel completely different pressure when facing the funeral. The room was narrow, but the 3 children were interrupted by the end of the fun, 3 funeral congregation in front of the power to try to break into the room. There is a child running into the window. Except for the 4 funeral candidates, the remaining funeral still crowded out the door, staggered body makes people feel helpless without limitation. White, 3 at the door to give you. Yingzhu passed the command, ran through the window, in 2 eyes blinked light, brought a saber to the head of the other, with his head scurried to the side. White beards leveled once, the action was a little more eloquent, it stamped on the corpse of the funeral room in the room to the door, a neatly cutting down hammer to handle a funeral. Left 2 funeral condemnation to the body of the crowd crammed in. The 2 children were interrupted immediately after being junked by objects that stumble on the ground. You in the opportunity to move forward, a stick should be on the head of a funeral examination, bring his head to the side. Reinforce the cover, cut off the head of another funeral. We have yet to exhale, there are 4 funeral entrance into the room and windows. Akila bit his teeth, walked 1 step forward in front of the groomed child who was biting his eyes, aggressively banging on his head, bringing his head to the side, a white band lunged back into his body. White pieces of the body in front of the door to mobilize the hammer to the head of a mendicant cut into 2 sections, black blood splashed everywhere. At this time the door of the room was the body of the funeral together with the clogs, but the fun still in the empty room. Left 2 gurus are blocked at the door, do not stop. The opportunity to step to the left 1 sticks on the right 1 stab dead 2 children 1 turn. The body of the 2 funeral to stop at the main door, blood black stall, all room stinky cannot stand it. Externally crowded, the 3 bodies were interrupted to fall into the room, 2 funeral candidates crowded into the gap. 2 gongs have just stuck their head in, and was stomped on the body of the Songtrong stabbing a dead body, white skirp left hammer to cut the remaining 1. The window had a crawler coming in, it had just been half the people were immediately moved by the musketeer smashed his head. Just finished the funeral, a group of optical light into the body of the Yue, a voice resounding. He has risen to the 3rd level, sometimes distributing strengths. Strength, fitness. Yingting breathlessly selected, fighting with the funeral examination that made his body weight is extremely large, not full of force he must spend as much physical strength to smash the head of another. The concept is dynamic, a direct flow of warm air in the body of music, began to help him strengthen the body.